Hi guys, welcome back to Fur Friday, and today we're going to be tackling a little cat's nose. So again, I haven't pre-picked the colours because I'd like you to see the process, because cat's nose are pretty similar when it comes to the actual coloration of the nose itself. It's just generally the fur that is slightly different around the outside that you'll be able to pick your colours for. But today's picture was offered up to us by a Lena, thank you very much. So we're just going to jump straight in, and the first thing I'm going to do is go in with some dark indigo. And the reason being is the reference picture that I have in front of me is pretty cold, what I would call a cold black in the darkest areas, and we are going to start off with the darkest areas today. So I'm just going to fill in the space that we want. So the point of doing today is one, to teach you the general method that I use for colouring cat's noses, and the other one is to show you the method of the direction of fur. And that's the main reason why I've chosen this picture, is because when we come to it, and you'll see in the reference pictures that the fur is going in lots of different directions. So it's really just to help you get to grips with where the direction goes, and it just gives you a bit of confidence when you come to do it yourself. So just make sure we get those darks down. So dark indigo down first, and we have got a little bit under, or on the top I should say, and there is a few sort of white strands that come in, so I'm just going to do the odd line that comes up onto the nose just to help us leave some negative space, so we're not having to come in and rely on the slice tool too much. We have zoomed in quite far, so you can see quite a bit of detail, but I'm not going to go overboard with that because I want to try and keep these little mini tutorials at an achievable time, so you can just get your pens and paint. Which, you know what, I always say pens when it comes to pencils and pencils when it comes to pens. I don't know why, but I do. Okay, so that's getting the darkest portions blocked out. We're going to start off on his nose with cinnamon. So again, we're using the polys. Cinnamon. Light oval motions all the way over. Warm grey, and I think we don't want to be putting too much pressure on this. I wasn't going to go in too dark too quickly, but what you want to do is make sure that we start drawing in the direction in which the fur comes away from the nose. So on the top of the nose it will go up. Now our nose is upside down, so normally the fur would go up towards the eyes, and of course when we come out it will go towards the cheeks. So don't draw it down or up. When you do the sides, it goes out towards the side of the cheeks, and then it comes down as you come towards the bottom, and then again we follow it round and we start pulling it out towards the cheek area. The trickiest bit is when you come up towards the eyes, because it goes in 3 different directions. So the nose slit, I suppose, I don't know the technical terms, comes up higher as it does with dogs than the nose itself. So So you have to make sure that you include that in as well. And again, it become more refined, a bit more realistic looking the more we start layering it up. I'm just going to get my blade and just, I haven't got huge amounts of wax on here, but I'm just going to pull out a couple of sections where the highlights could do being a tiny bit stronger. Fill in a bit darker in between. Let's grab my Payne's Grey. Like so. Right, warm grey 4, and this one we can lightly shade a good portion of the top of his nose. Come out into here as well, because all this is in quite deep shadow. I'm just shading this particular area in the direction it's going. So if you're thinking about a clock, again, because we're doing it upside down, it would be slightly different for you, unless you're doing an upside down cat. So we're going from about 2 o'clock, then we're going around to 3 o'clock, and then we're going down to around 5 o'clock. And that's the direction that we're doing it. Because we're giving it a little bit of a backwards and forwards motion, we're almost adding a bit of fur texture in without having to do any major extra work. So when you come to adding fur direction on this section, we're going to stop here because we need to start making sure that our direction is going in the right way. So again, if we're thinking about it as a clock, this section here is a slightly different colour. So we would be starting at 12 o'clock pretty much, looking at our reference, and we need to work around to almost 3 o'clock. So when we do our little pencil lines, we work around from 12 to 3 until it reaches the top of that nose. Then when we get to the top of the nose, that's when we can start bringing it down towards that nose, and then we start getting our straighter fur lines. And again, as we come round, you can tighten the curl almost up to probably 2 o'clock, and again just bring it down, and then you get that nice natural flow of fur. And again, this is a different colour section we're going to be doing here, so we need to leave this until we come to this part. Okay, so again 12 to 3. And then in this bit, we need to actually go from 12 to probably 8, I would say, not quite 9. And then that gives us our split. Okay, so we'll build that up as and when we come round, but again it gives you an idea of the rough direction in that the fur will lie. Then underneath this section actually all comes round from 6 up to about 11. Yeah, 6 to 11. It's got a slight curve. In that direction. So when we come to do this bit here, this is where we have the tight direction change in this bit here, because on the sides we're going down towards the cheeks, then we start to come up towards the nose, and it all starts to splay out. So it can be a bit tricky, but it's worth mastering because it can really aid you in getting that super realistic look with fur when it comes to it. So in this section here, this is the bit that we were going from 12 to 3, and what we want to do is go from our 12, which was our starting point, and start to flick up over. I suppose if you're thinking about it as a clock, at the minute we're working from the center of the clock and we're working out towards our numbers. On this bit we almost want to go from 12, jump out of the clock and go round to 10, and that again just gives us a little bit more direction and the ability to change the direction, looking much more natural. Extending that 12 up a bit till we start curling around. This can be one of the hardest bits to do on a cat and a dog, is that fur direction, and that can actually give you issues in the long run with it looking as it should. I've always said that you can have a really brightly coloured cat, but if your fur is in the right direction, it will still look just as real. So while I've still got the warm grey, I'm just going to carry on using that same technique, coming up into the nose. We start to straighten up at the end here, so we go from 12 down to 4, and then we come along 12 to 3 again. Just keep going. We join it up a little bit here, but the rest we keep going in that straight direction until we come to where our curves come in, and then we just start bending it around so it all meets up. And we can just do little darker sections in there. And this is what's going to build up, so it's going to take a little while to build up, but once you get in a flow and your hands get used to the direction, this is where muscle memory will come in. Then all this will render up much quicker than what you're used to. So the more you practice these, the quicker you'll get at them. So I'm now going to swap over to my Payne's Grey. We want to get some darker lines coming out into that fur. Strengthen the solid section in here. In fact, we could probably come out much further looking at the reference. Out much further, I think. There we go. And this bit in here, I know we can go much darker on here as well. Sorry for any background noise you may be hearing right now. There we go, that's extended out a bit. And then I think we can also go in with the dark sepia. Let me get a sharp point on there. The dark sepia will just add a slightly different hue and it'll be a bit warmer than the Payne's grey. And then we're going to blend over with our ivory just to soften it all up. And then we are going to continue around. So the fur on the nose is very stubby. So when we come to do any sort of dark shadows, we would do tiny little pencil motions. And there's going to be an awful lot more detail in my drawing than there will be in the photo, because again, we've zoomed right in. So I'll be adding more detail than is actually needed or is actually there. And that's the joys of being an artist, is you can do all this and yeah, add as much as you want with regards to all these little bits of interest to the fur and the shadows. So you can see what I mean about relieving negative space. Sometimes it's easier to do that than it is to keep coming back with the slice tool or a white pencil, and it's far better than trying to use a white highlighter as they can peel off later on. I'm just going to blend in the shadow as a solid colour, as we need a bit of shape on his nose where it's curving upwards. So this bit in here is lighter than this section here. So we're just creating the shape with the shadows. Just going to put in his whisker shadows in while I'm playing with the warm grey. There's a little section in here that's quite dark as well that we can add in. And I think overall, if I go in with I'm thinking the nougat, let's have a look. Yeah, nougat. So it's slightly out on the oranger side. I'd rather it be a touch more yellow, but it will do for now. We're just going to block in where that colour changes on his face, and it's a very gentle colour, so we don't want to go too crazy. So that comes all the way around to the bottom of his top lip. So again, this is just our base colour. Very roughly get some fur direction in. We can actually get away with using that colour on some of these shadows up here as well. So we're leaving that ivory underneath as negative space to act as our highlights. And then yeah, it's bringing the colours together, so I quite like bringing that nougat in just to add a nice bit of coloration to the bottom. I'm going to do it very lightly on the bottom jaw because the bottom jaw is actually still fairly light. I'm going to swap to my warm grey. No, I'm not. I'm going to swap to my dark sepia. No, I've changed my mind again. We're going to go warm grey because apparently I'm indecisive today. Okay, and now we can use our warm grey to darken up our colour here. Just stops it being quite so orange, but without losing too much of the colour. So we're just changing the tone slightly. There we go. Now while we have that in our hand, we can start blocking in some of the shadow on this side. There's quite a bit on this bit. Quite dark down here. There's a bit of a highlight happening just on the top there, and then a highlight happening on the side of the nose. So we need to make sure, and in fact that's a good indicator that we will use to how dark we need to go on the top of his nose. So if we're not seeing any highlight down this side, then you know that you've not gone dark enough on the actual nose itself. A lot of the issue is never trying to go light enough, it's always going dark enough for your lights to be able to shine through. I'm swapping to the warm grey 6. Make that patch in here a bit stronger, so it's quite a nice dark patch he has in here. And then also we need to do that by his whiskers as well. So every time you go over, you're going to lose some of that. We've got a little one here, so it's not too dark. Put the odd shadow in while I'm going around, but mainly we'll use the dark sepia and the Payne's grey for that. But you can see how it's building up now. When we come to do this whisker section, you generally have to go in the direction that the whisker is growing out. So if they're pointing down, then the whiskers will be pointing down as well. I know it sounds like an obvious thing, but again, it's something that quite often people get wrong, and it really can affect the overall look of what you're trying to achieve. So you just need to bear that in mind. Okay, so we can probably go a bit darker in here while I have it in my hand. got lots of wiry, straggly bits in here, so I'm just going to try and leave a bit of negative space, but if I need to come up with the blade afterwards, it's not a problem. Again, we can still afford to go darker on the top of his nose. And darker still down here. Again, I'm not going to be exact to the photo. It's giving you an idea of the fur direction and how to deal with, get my words out in a minute, how to deal with the fur direction. I'm just going to blend over with the lighter of the warm greys, because it can be a bit daunting when you see the fur just going all in those different directions. It's not always easy to try and get your head around the best way to draw them. So hopefully this will give you an idea and maybe just a little bit more confidence to go ahead and have a go. Just using the darkest of the warm greys still. Oops, oh, I broke the lead. Okay, so I'm using the dark sepia. I'm just extending the dark patches that are just in this area. That's not the dark sepia at all, Benita, that was the nougat. Let's try again. Dark sepia. There we go. Again, just up here around that whisker area. You don't have to have every patch of fur with some sort of detail in. You are allowed to have some areas of fur that have no detail in. I've mentioned this before, you know, don't be afraid to have solid sections of colour when it comes to doing fur. You don't have to constantly have fur detail showing everywhere. Right, just getting the detail and the size correct on this little area down here, as we can afford to start fiddling down and just sort of extending some of the detail down here. So we need to indicate that this is the bottom of his mouth, but there's not a huge amount of colour down here. So we need to get that a bit darker in now. We've darkened the top of his nose. Okay, so we're going to grab our nougat. I'm just going to start filling in some of the spaces at the back here as well, instead of having what we see as this large gap happening. As I say, behind is, do I want to fill it in? No, I'm not going to worry. It's essentially the rest of his body, but we're not concentrating on that. We're just concentrating on this part. So that's what we'll stick to for now. It may look a bit odd. Again, I've said previously, things look very odd if they're out of context, and we're just drawing one little tiny square in comparison to an entire cat. So sometimes it can look a bit strange, but this is to show you the method, not how to draw an entire cat. But we'll get to that at some point, no doubt. There'll be more tutorials coming. So lots planned. As I say, if you do have a specific tutorial that you would like me to do, I do have a whole list and I will be working through them, but if there's anything that maybe I haven't covered so far and may not be on my list, don't hesitate to pop it down in the comments below and I'll see what I can do. Okay, so warm grey 4. Again, just a mix of blending, a bit of first stroke. We need to make sure we keep this bit nice and light. I'm thinking we're going to go in maybe with a slice. I don't think there's quite enough on here, but we're getting some working there, so that's quite good. So I might, yeah, let's just pop the odd 1 or 2. We don't need many. As I say, I'm adding more detail than is necessary, to be perfectly honest, and I don't need to, but when in Rome. So let's stop there because I don't need to do much. Little brush over. As I say, they really are worth getting, these little brushes, because they do help you. It just stops you from ruining your drawings, which is easily done, especially if you blow. So always get one of these little brushes, just keep it clean. I've got one that I use for graphite and one that I use for colour pencils, and at 99p you can't grumble at the price, so bargain. You're just blending in where that highlight is sitting on that bit of fur there, just so it doesn't look quite so stop-starty. And let's swap to the Payne's Grey. Want a bit of depth happening now. Bit of depth in here helps give shape, and we're just going to go a tiny touch darker just on here as well, again just to try and give it a bit more of a curved, there we go, a bit more of a curved shape happening. So hopefully this has shown you a rough process of dealing with a cat nose, albeit we did it upside down, you know, we're all to set you a challenge and that, so it gives you a good idea of what you need to do to get going. So if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, I would love a thumbs up. Don't forget to share with friends and family. If you know of anybody who's trying to learn how to draw animal portraits, they'll find a lot of these fur tutorials very, very useful. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification for all, and that makes sure that you get a notification as to when a new video comes up, or if indeed I go live. And yeah, if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to pop them in the comments below, and I shall see you guys on the next video. Bye.